Hey guys, we're going to check in with Uwe Bald from Hermes. If you don't know Hermes, it's not the fashion and clothing and apparel company. We're talking about a massive logistics provider in Europe owned by Otto Group, which is essentially an Amazon competitor. We're going to talk about ways to reduce your cost in fulfillment and logistics direct to consumer to Europe and how to increase the customer experience. Let's check it out.
Okay, how did I get into the industry? So as you can tell from my accent, not from here originally, I got shipped over in a mission to help Microsoft to globalize their business and their operations, and stuck around this business ever since. What is Hermes? Hermes is not the French luxury product. Hermes is from Greek mythology, a messenger of the gods, and is known in some European markets as an e-commerce delivery company.
Is that a lot to live up to as a name?
You mean the French? Not necessarily, no. It's
gods. Okay, so what exactly does Hermes do, and what's the problem it's solving in the market?
Well, it's probably from the history. So Hermes was created as the delivery company of the back then largest mail order company in the world, which is the Otto Group. Yeah, started in 1972 as a mail order delivery company. So they solved the problem of delivering to end consumers at a price that an end consumer would be willing to pay, or a retailer willing to pay, at a quality that is needed for B2C delivery, and without any of the hassles that the postal office would offer, or on the other hand, commercial carriers would otherwise bring. They basically had the service for e-commerce deliveries before e-commerce even existed.
So it's private sector?
That's correct.
And you're affiliated with Otto Group?
That is right. Yeah, that's our parent company.
Could you tell us a little bit about what Otto Group is?
Sure. So Otto Group, historically, once upon a time, 1948, Werner Otto did a hand-written catalog, 28 pages, and selling shoes. And fast forward, these days, $18 billion company, $10 billion in online revenue, being the largest European originated e-commerce company. So basically the Amazon or the Alibaba of Europe. Whereas hardly anybody knows them since they operate under 60 different names.
So Otto Group is like Amazon in terms of a marketplace in Europe?
That is correct. These days, yes. It started as a retailer, developed into a closed marketplace, and just last year started becoming an open marketplace.
What is the name? You said there are multiple names. What are some of the names of the marketplaces?
The marketplace is Otto. It's Otto Market.
Otto Market. Okay, so what percentage of the market does Otto Market have versus, let's say, an Amazon?
It depends market to market. In the German market, Otto is the second largest online retailer after Amazon.
Okay.
Historically, when I joined the company in 2012, Otto was on a European scale larger than Amazon. Companies developed a little different since then.
Okay. Well, obviously, people should know what Otto Group is if you're looking to sell into Europe. To that end, what are some of the top considerations that a company needs to have when selling direct to consumers in Europe from a logistics and fulfillment standpoint?
So when talking about Europe, that's the first point. So what are we looking at? Which market are we looking at? Which countries are we looking at? And which model are we looking at? So once we have an answer to that, then different strategies are there to recommend.
So tell me a couple of contrasting ones. Let's take Germany, the UK, and would you say, France? I mean, what are some of the differences?
So the main difference, Europe is one market, but it's 27 if you include the UK, 28 different countries. Here we got a list. English is here as the most natively spoken language in the EU. So it comes right before, what's the next one? Slovak, and right after Bulgarian. It's just a bunch of different languages with different countries, different regulations, and so on. Different regulations, to make the point, it's one market. So the market rules are harmonized, but you still deal with 27 different countries.
So when you say it's different, how does it manifest itself in terms of your strategy?
So by going into another market, different ways to go into it. So you can try it across border with your own setup, so with your online store out of the US. You can try it with a local marketplace. Talked about Otto, for example. You can look for a distributor, or you can also go into a hybrid model of some of them if you really want to explore Europe as a whole. That's the model. The other portion is, where do you have a market? So I mentioned it. So you deal with 24 different languages, 27 countries. At the same time, now we include the UK. If you do the UK, France, and Germany, you talk about 2/3 of your market overall. So 1/3 is basically 24 countries and 21 languages. So and that determines a bit, the strategy. It really depends also, what is the product that you are selling, in which market can you generate enough scale to go local into the market.
Okay, let's talk about those incremental steps then. Let's say I have a product that's lightweight, good margins, and I want to sell it into Germany direct from my US website. Where do I put my inventory? How feasible is it that I could sell direct to the consumer? And what are the concerns that I need to be thinking about?
This is a very good example. So this is always the starting point, as I mentioned. So if you say you have a product with a demand in the German market from your own website, so I would assume before you do anything else, you realize that you have traffic on that website. So that you see customers from Germany hitting your website and you want to sell. Question now is, can you sell already, or do you have don't you have the things in place to sell to the German audience? So low-hanging fruits, assuming you have traffic. However, you don't tailor towards the traffic, so it basically bounces. So you don't have any way to fulfill those kind of orders. I would recommend in the first step a cross-border shipping service, basically, that brings your product from the US into the German market, and handles also the customs and duty calculations, so that it's flawless for your end customer. And you can start with just materializing on the organic traffic that you already have.
Okay, so to that end, from a shipping and fulfillment perspective, I can do it from the US, and where am I shipping it to? Direct to consumer? How does that work?
So direct to consumer, you can do a cross-border shipment. So there are certain thresholds. When it comes to those cross-border shipments, into the EU, thresholds are 150 euros and 23 euros, so more than 150 euros customs and duties apply. Below 23 euros, none of that applies. Between the 23 and the 150 euros, you pay taxes, but no customs.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? So let me just say that again. So over 150, you pay duties and taxes. Under 23, that's the de minimis. You don't pay anything. And between 23 and 150, what happens?
You pay the taxes, but no customs.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So let's say I'm selling a product, right? I'm selling it into Germany. Who's dealing with the last mile?
The last mile. So if we talk about Germany, your options are the postal service, which ironically is owned by DHL, or the other way around, or Hermes. There are a couple of other providers in the market, but those are the two big ones.
Okay, and then you're shipping. Explain to me these. What are these called? These packets, or these things? What are these?
Well, packet is a product out of the postal language, which is a postal product basically. So it's for lightweight, low value goods. Probably the cheapest way to ship in general anywhere into the world if you fall under those criteria. In the Hermes case, this here is the Hermes version of a packet. Again, packet is out of terminology out of the postal world. Hermes, by being a commercial carrier, comes with some different features in that category.
All right, so I got a question for you, Uwe. If a company wants to sell across all of Europe, where should they place inventory to reduce their costs, their taxes, and increase the customer experience?
Okay, to reduce the cost depends where your main market is. Taxes is a good topic, and I get that all the time with US retailers. So that they are so keen on, so fond of reducing taxes. Two markets which come with a certain tax benefit is when it comes to logistics is Belgium and the Netherlands. It's not that you are saving taxes. What happens is that you pay your taxes and duties or your import fees later, which gives you a cash flow advantage. So meaning you import the goods today and you don't have to pay it 3 months, 6 months out. So by that time you assume you sold the product. So you have a cash flow advantage, which is not really a tax advantage, but that's how it's always been marketed. At the same time, looking at those two markets, one thing to consider is they're small countries. They're not going to be your biggest markets. Talking about markets in terms of countries. So that means getting your product to your main markets, so where your main customers are, will add cost to the equation. At the same time, in Belgium and in the Netherlands, the labor costs and the real estate costs are relatively high for European standards. So while you have a cash flow advantage, it will cost you more bottom line, which for some retailers might still make sense to go this way if cash flow is the main concern. Then other opportunities that you have, I mentioned your 3 big markets, UK, Germany, France. The UK always makes the sample. Well, UK officially not part of the EU anymore, so if you really want to go into the mainland, probably at this point, unless something changes in the exit negotiation, not the best place for a European logistics strategy. And also in the old days, I always made the comparison of the UK being like Puerto Rico. While it gives you a lot of benefits, and Puerto Rico even gives you solid tax benefits, nobody would put their inventory to serve the US market on Puerto Rico. UK, same thing. It's an island, so you always need to get the product off the island. Costs you more money, takes you longer, and it's not even part of the EU anymore. So which will make things even more complicated. Then you have your other 2 large markets with end customers on the European mainland, France and Germany. France, central location within Europe, comes at times with challenges on the legislative side, so it's not as flexible, but it might make sense if you want to be very close to the French consumer. Germany, same as France, regulation probably a little less than France, so it's a little more pro-business. And one advantage in Germany is it has areas in the country which are logistically still very central for Europe, by being the country in the middle of Europe, and with low labor and real estate costs, so it can come with some cost benefits. Also, maybe one point to make about a central location of Germany. Germany is, after Russia and China, the country with the most land borders in the world. So it has 9 neighbors, which makes it just explains how central it is located. There are some large-scale retailers that try to get into Europe now by placing fulfillment centers into Eastern Europe. The advantages are clearly on the cost side. So you save labor cost and also real estate cost. At the same time, you're a little further away from your main markets, which you can compensate with speeding up the logistics. Also comes at a cost. So this is a strategy which really only makes sense for the very big guys. So Amazon is, for example, moving a little east. Otto, with its own marketplace business, is exploring Eastern Europe further. H&M does it. But for a small, mid-sized market, you typically tend to stay more in the center of Europe.
Okay, so for the SME, we're saying we're going to place it, you're saying Germany would be one of the optimal places.
Germany, as I said, Belgium, Netherlands also make sense. I just wanted to put a perspective to it, since they have a reputation of a tax savings, which again, it's more cash flow savings. At the same time, you have, so if you also look into connection from your sourcing market, so connections to into Asia, you have the largest ports in Europe are in the Netherlands, in Belgium, and in Germany. So this sets the stage for those probably being very good locations. Whereas I wouldn't rule out France either.
Just so I understand, putting your products in Netherlands to fulfill throughout Europe does not really give you a tax benefit, but it does delay your tax liabilities, thus giving you a cash flow benefit. It also has strongest connections with, for example, Asia, if you are sourcing direct from Asia and you want to facilitate that easier. Similar, though, in that sense, with Germany and possibly France.
And Belgium also, yes. So answer being yes, a couple of samples for that. Largest port in Europe, used to be the largest port in the world before the Chinese took over that position, is Rotterdam, Netherlands, and then used to be Hamburg, number 2. These days is Antwerp. So Antwerp being in Belgium. So you have the top 3 there. In matter of air freight, so if you fly in the product, also an emerging hub around cargo air freight in Europe is Liège in Belgium, but also Frankfurt and Schiphol, so the airport of Amsterdam, play significant roles in the movement of goods.
What can a small and medium business do to cut down their shipping costs direct to consumer in Europe?
It comes back. Well, there are two possibilities. It's actually a good point. So let me start all over again. So talking about Europe again, it's different markets. So your logistic networks are always organized around a country. So that means if you look at a European map and you want to ship from 2 miles over the border from the Netherlands into Germany, it is an international transaction. So logistically, this parcel will go first in a hub in the Netherlands before it goes into an incoming hub in Germany to be delivered to the end customer. So something to be explained by, again, it's one market, but 27 independent countries with some different regulations behind it. So that means something that you know from the US with zoning, which typically works with the further I go away from my originating country into the shipping destination, the more it costs me. This map is a little skewed if you look in terms of shipping cost into Europe, because it's really the clock starts ticking again, or your postage meter with crossing a country border. So with all that having said, going back to your question, think about where your market is. You will always get the best rate domestically. As soon as you ship into another country, it will get automatically significantly more expensive. Whereas there are some initiatives currently with the EU to harmonize that. So to put boundaries on logistic companies, postal operators, to not overcharge customers by shipping cross-border.
Okay. Trying to get to a very concise strategy or an example.
Let me do this one more time.
Yeah.
To save cost, think about where your customer is and place your product where your customer is. Your domestic shipping rates will always be much cheaper than anything international in the market.
Okay. So obviously, like always, you start with market research, but let's assume you have pretty good traction in Germany, France, Spain, let's say. You're not sure yet where the biggest boost is, because up until now you haven't been offering cheap enough shipping to really test the market. Now, if you all of a sudden move inventory or you're able to ship at reduced rates into Europe, you may find that your market opens up. What do you suggest for companies that are dealing with that situation?
Well, you can still move around later on, and there are different. Let me make a couple of short statements. So your domestic market will always give you the best shipping rates. Going back to the sample of the UK and Belgium, those probably will never be your cheapest markets or your largest markets. So that means you will probably automatically incur slightly higher shipping rates. However, here's a clue, and that depends on what your 3PL or your own warehouse can provide you. If you have enough volumes, the carriers from other countries will come to your warehouse and will pick it up. So meaning you might be able, having a warehouse in the Netherlands and having a logistic company from France, from Germany, coming into the Netherlands, picking up your deliveries and injecting them into the domestic network in Germany or in France. And that bottom line will give you the cheapest rates or cheapest total cost, but it's again a game of economies of scale. So if you're a small, medium business, on your own, you probably don't have the volumes. If you work with a powerful partner, they might give you be able to give you that benefit.
Okay, so there's so many different parts of this matrix as you're building it. It sounds like in one part you got to figure out where your audience is, where your customers are, but similarly, you can place your inventory one place. If your 3PL that you're working with happens to already be doing a lot of cross-border shipments in that location, they may give you reduced rates even if you can't get them on your own volumes alone. So Netherlands could be an option for you for the rest of Europe.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about customer service. How does the customer get a package if you ship it to Europe? I understand there's different markets where the customer is used to a different type of, let's say, pickup option, right? They can pick it up at a postal office. They can pick it up near downtown. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so in general, one of the main differences from the US to pretty much the rest of the world is that a delivery is typically done with a signature. So there is a clear defined transfer of responsibility. So once the carrier receives the signature, they are released from responsibility. So it's not their business anymore if something happens to the package. At the same time, also for anybody that's ever been in Europe, the cities, particular cities, look quite different than in the US. So less single family houses, more large apartment complexes without a pool house and those kind of amenities. So it's also, so if you compare it with the US delivery, it's simply not feasible in most of the markets to just drop a parcel somewhere over the fence or drop them on the porch. Also happens, but it's not the typical thing. So a typical thing is you receive a signature. Then you have many different ways of deliveries due to the complexity with receiving a signature. So receiving a signature for a parcel automatically increases the complexity of the delivery. So you need to make a delivery to somebody that is literally never at home. It's a big difference between B2C and B2B delivery. So B2B delivery, you make a delivery to a business any time between the times of 8 to 5. And typically there's a receptionist, there's a shipping, receiving area. So the delivery itself is not the challenge. Making delivery to an end customer and receiving a signature for that is a big challenge because, well, you would want to also work from 8 to 5, but this is exactly the time when somebody is at work. And so which just makes it very, very challenging. Shipping something to work is not very popular in Europe, and a lot of employers also have policies that don't allow it. Not all of them, but this happens. So as a carrier, you need to think about how can I get to my end customer. One very popular method, and that's actually one of the growth engines of Hermes in general, is parcel shop network. So parcel shop is something that you see emerging here in the US now, which are basically drop-off and pick-up points, shop-in-shops mainly in Europe. So ideally places of your everyday work where you would walk by or come by anyways, and then can leverage that transfer with picking up or dropping off, picking up your shipment or dropping off a return. So good samples for that are gas stations, bakeries, supermarkets, dry cleaners, subway stations even in times. Hermes has even a service specifically for eBay to drop off parcels on the bus in Paris. So all those strategies work around parcel shops. Also something to keep in mind in the European market is, particularly in the German market, is the opening hours are highly regulated. So it's not like here that shops can stay open 24 hours. So that also puts limiting factors on your parcel shops. But there are a couple of services that can open or can have extended opening hours, like for example gas stations, so they can stay open 24 hours. And combining a gas station with a parcel shop is just it's a win-win for everyone. Brings more traffic into the gas station, makes it easier for the a customer to drop off, pick up a parcel, and also for carriers like Hermes to provide a good service.
Okay, so Hermes has a special network of this. Do they own that network in a way?
Yeah, so Hermes has the largest parcel shop network in Europe, 36,000 parcel shops across Europe, which drills down if we go into our core markets, which is also France, Germany, UK. In Germany, in one of the metropolitan areas in Germany, every 400 meters on average, you have a parcel shop. Meter meaning more or less a yard, so 2 blocks, and you are in a Hermes parcel shop. In the UK, the statistic is that 95% of the UK population lives within a square mile of a Hermes parcel shop. In France, and France being the country with the highest adoption rate of parcel shops in Europe, the statistics is similar. It's in particularly strong in France in the metropolitan areas, where parcel shops are being accepted. Countryside is more to-door delivery kind of service.
Okay, so if I'm an e-commerce seller, do I need to be asking my logistics service if they plug into Hermes network? Does that happen kind of automatically?
That is a question you want to ask, yeah.
And most of them do, I presume. They can ride on your network, correct?
Yes, most they do, but again, I mean, Hermes is like Otto and everything we deal to. Before this podcast, you've probably never heard of us, while we are a significant player in that market.
So obviously, you don't allow Amazon packages to be using your network.
Well, we actually do. So Amazon is also being one of our largest customers.
Yeah, it's always challenging in that situation. Okay, all right, so let's talk a little bit about DDU, DDP. What is it? What's the general trend in terms of consumer preference? And how do you deal with returns in that way?
Very good question. So DDP, DDU, that's terminologies in the cross-border context. So you want to ship something from the US into Europe, into Germany, let's say. DDP means customs duties paid, and DDU, customs duties unpaid. So that basically means at the time of delivery, are the customs and duties paid or are they not paid? So in a DDP sense, if everything is smooth and everything works fine, that means that the end customer basically receives the package like a domestic delivery, so they don't have to deal with customs and duties ever. With DDU, different situations, so customs and duties are not paid. That means, you deal with it upon delivery, which can be very cumbersome. So in some scenarios, you might need to pick up the parcel actually from a customs office, which those are not available around every corner, so that can be a very cumbersome process. On the other hand, the carrier might also be able to collect the customs and duties and have them paid on your behalf in front. And that's something to be careful about, because some carriers market this kind of service also as DDP. Let me make that point. DDP just means, are the customs and duties paid while the package is cleared? So that means there might be a scenario, and some carriers, some consolidators actually label something as a DDP service because they pay the customs at customs clearance, but then still charge the end customer upon delivery for the delivery fee. So it's another aspect to consider, that a DDU, DDP, while it means customs and duties paid and unpaid, be careful. There are a few players in the market that label something as a DDP service, which in the core of the meaning, that's correct, but it still results in a DDU-like end customer experience, since they still get hit with the fees upon delivery. And this is the core of the dilemma of DDU shipments. So in most of the cases, the end customer doesn't know that they have to pay customs and duties and what the amount of customs duties will be. So what happens is they receive a delivery when they make a DDU order, and suddenly there is an additional invoice on top. And this additional invoice means for them that comes out of nowhere as a surprise. So a very high rate of rejections is a result of that, which is a dilemma for the retailer at the other end, because the end customer rejects the delivery charges or typically requests chargeback on the credit card, and the retailer has the full dilemma. So they basically did the transaction, they got them into Europe, even delivered it to the port, and now the delivery was rejected. There's a product somewhere at the other part of the world, and the goods are basically
keep walking
lost.
through that. That's interesting. So now the product's sitting there. Back, where does the product go when they reject it?
Yeah, this is a good question. So you can ask it back. Costs you a hell of money. So typically you claim it as you make it destroyed. So it costs you more than it costs you tons of money. So you did the marketing, you did the sale, you did the delivery, and then you pay for destroying it at the end.
Wow.
Worst case scenario.
Wow. And then you also, can you do duty? Well, let's talk about duty drawbacks for a second. So in general, let me just walk through what you just said, right? DDP, delivery duties paid, the idea that the consumer, let's say they bought a product for $100 on your site. They're in France. And let's just, for the sake of numbers, let's say now they have to pay the duties of about $17 on top of that. So they can get charged at the point of checkout $117. Then when it gets to them, in theory, they don't have to pay anything. It can go straight to their door, or they pick it up in one of these locations, and there's no additional transactions or activities they have to do. Happy as a clam. The other option is DDU, delivery duties unpaid. They're getting a product, they're buying it for $100. They're not getting charged that $17. That $17, then when they receive the item, there's a little bit of a receipt before they even can pick it up, right? They say go over to the post office or go somewhere, and they have to pay that $17 to receive the item, correct?
That's correct.
Now, this hybrid thing, or this kind of gray area you're saying, is some carriers will say it's going to be DDP, meaning the consumer doesn't have to pay that, but the merchant themselves hasn't paid it either, because the carrier then, at the point that it lands in country, now is charging that money. How does that work again?
No, so DDP, DDU, it's a term in customs clearance. So that means at the point of clearance, is it prepaid or isn't it prepaid? So that means, do I let it into the country, and at the point of entry somebody paid the customs and duties, or will I charge for it once I release it to the end customer? So that's the pure meaning of the terminology. So that means if you want to offer DDP, and you do not want a bad customer experience, you need to know what those customs and duties will be, to either factor them into your price or charge them through to your end customer. Because if you don't have that, what happens on the other side is, the carrier will pay, the carrier or the customs broker will pay upon entrance if you choose this kind of DDP service, or this is in general how DDP service works. So at the point of entrance, you pay the customs and duties. So that means the the package itself is released from any custom burden. However, somebody paid for it, and now they want to get the money back. And if you didn't include it into your pricing system, and if you didn't charge that money upfront from your customer at checkout, then you go afterwards to your customer, and then you ask them for paying it to the carrier to receive the parcel. So it doesn't really fix the issue, even though it has the label DDP, and there is no issue anymore with customs. It's still the issue that the carrier wants to be paid for that they provided, the clearance service, basically.
Okay, so that's not really, for all intents and purposes, that's not a DDP experience. It's just called DDP because the carrier themselves is paying for it. But ultimately, either the consumer, if they haven't been charged up front, is going to have to pay it, or you're going to have to pay it and go after the consumer after, correct?
So the point to make is the end customer experience versus the pure meaning of the word in customs terms. In customs terms, DDU, DDP means upon entrance, is the package paid or not paid? From an end customer perspective, this is a different experience. From an end customer perspective, you care about, do I need to pay something upon delivery, or is it already taken care of?
Perfect. Let's talk about duty drawback. What is it, and how do you deal with it as an exporter?
So duty drawback is basically comes up with particular with returns, cancellations. So whenever you are trying to get some fees back from your transaction. So assuming you imported something into Europe and it resulted in a return, so it should go back to the US. So now you want to draw back the customs and duties that you paid upon entrance to get them back when you return the item. So that's what's named customs and duty drawback.
You sell a product for $100. It's got duties and taxes on it of $17. You charged the customer and you paid it up front. Customer pays $117, let's say. Now they want to return it. You give them back $117, but you still have that $17 that you want to get back for those duties and taxes because now that product has left the country again and you shouldn't have to pay those $17. So that's called duty drawback when you want to get that $17 back, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And how do you get it back?
Yeah. Well, you deal with authorities, so you can file it back. Depends. So it depends, like everything depends what I'm saying today. Depends how you brought it into the country. So only the person that is the importer of the product can claim for the duty drawback. So if the importer, and there are different models out there, the easiest model to get the product into the market is that the end customer is the importer of record. So they are on the record of the customs documents for importing, for being responsible for the import into the country. However, this comes with the downside, this model, that the end customer is the one that would need to file for the customs duty drawback.
And then never use your site again.
Yeah, not a very, very pretty process. So you need to deal with in a different way. So to import it basically with a company so that the company can file the customs duty drawback. Or you just build it into your business model. So it depends on really, again, as I said it too many times, it depends on what you sell. Returns might not even be a big issue. So fashion is very prone to returns. But let's say you sell some gimmicks, some electronics, which have a return rate of, let's say, less than 5%. You might just build all that in your business model and be done with it this way.
Now, this is something to consider when you're looking at where to place your inventory, because I presume if you choose a country that's very friendly to duty drawbacks or has things in place to help that, then that may be advantageous for certain companies that have high return rates.
Yeah, that's also yes and no. If there are high return rates, you have economies of scale behind it anyways to deal with it. Talking about friendly, so here we go with that kind of stuff. What I said, on the other hand, the Netherlands and Belgium as smaller countries definitely show more flexibility when it comes to that compared to the UK, to Germany and France, for example. That's a very interesting point. So. But the US, if you compare it with the US, it also works in a similar way. So that countries or where legislation and regulations in California, for example, are much higher than they are in Texas and they are in Nevada, you can make a similar comparison in Europe, where regulations and the ease of doing things, well, regulation on the one hand, certainly higher in France than in Germany, than in the Netherlands and in Belgium. The ease of doing things is the opposite around. So it's probably Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, France. At the same time, as we said with the other question, when you look at cost, those two markets, so France and Germany, are just many times larger than Belgium and the Netherlands. So Netherlands, you deal with population of 17 million versus 82 million in Germany, 66 in France. Belgium, I have to lie, I don't even know the population out of my head. So it's around anywhere between less than 10 up to 10 million, something like that. So you deal with, again, market size, France 6 times larger, Germany 8 times larger. So which drive other cost components. So it's really, it's a give and take. But again, it's the same equations that you do in the US, where certainly to do things, it's cheaper to do that in Nevada or let's say in Nebraska but you're closer to your market if you're closer to New York or to Los Angeles.
Okay, it makes sense. Quick, what are some of the anecdotes, or do you have any stories or things you want to share about companies that have done it right or done it wrong?
Very good point. So going back again, think about where your market is and which model you want to use. So I mentioned I have some experience by internationalizing the business globally for companies like Microsoft. And I believe one thing, without violating anything that I can mention, with Microsoft, we localized in up to 32 languages on a global scale. I dealt with mid-sized to large fashion retailers that tried to break into the European market that resulted in localization of, what was it, up to 20 countries. And then they came to me and said, "Hey, Uwe, we don't making any money with our international e-commerce. Can you help us?" And that's, of course, that's an easy answer. So localize where it makes sense. As I mentioned originally, first question you should ask yourself: do you already have an audience? Do you already have clients that want to buy your product? And if they do, perfect. If they can't at this point, this is the first thing to solve. So how can you sell to the ones that already want it? And then in the second and third step, to go into ways to optimize or tailor better to a local market, which comes with automatically with localization with a typical point. So go into local languages, local currencies, local payment methods. Bring the product closer to the market, so provide a better service, customer service, logistics, return logistics, so all those topics then in a later step. First step that I would always do is, if there's an audience, tailor towards that audience, and then go incrementally to provide always a good ROI in every step.
There you have it from Uwe Bald from Hermes, owned by Otto Group, known in your neighborhood possibly as Border Guru. Big takeaways. It depends on which market your audience is as to how you can best optimize, but there are benefits to being in the Netherlands, let's say, Germany, France, even Eastern Europe, depending on your size, your audience, what you want to achieve. Customer experience is a big issue here, and you've got to understand the local process and how the customer experience is going to impact your conversion rates and your future client loyalty. We'll see you soon.